Most people spend their entire lives trying to earn respect, and they never get it. They work harder, achieve more, try to prove their value, seek validation, and people still don't respect them. Carl Jung discovered why. They're trying to get respect from the outside when respect can only come from the inside. Here's what the top 1% understand that everyone else misses. You can't make people respect you by doing things that earn respect. Respect isn't earned through achievement or performance. Real respect is commanded through psychological presence, and that presence comes from internal psychological work that 99% of people will never do. Jung spent decades studying people who naturally commanded respect without effort, and he discovered they all had something in common. They'd done specific internal psychological work that changed how they showed up in the world. They weren't trying to be respected, they were just being themselves. And respect happened automatically as a response to their psychological integration. I'm about to reveal the 5 psychological secrets Jung discovered in people who naturally command respect, and why these secrets have nothing to do with what you achieve and everything to do with who you've become internally. If you master these, people will respect you instantly without you having to do anything to earn it. Here's what Jung understood that destroys most people's attempts to gain respect. You can't get real respect through external achievement. You can get admiration, envy, fear, compliance, but not respect. Real respect is a psychological response to perceived psychological integration in another person. And you can't fake integration. Either you've done the internal work or you haven't. Most people pursue respect backwards. They think, if I achieve enough, people will respect me. If I'm successful enough, smart enough, strong enough, valuable enough, then I'll finally get the respect I deserve. So they work endlessly on external achievement while ignoring internal development. And they wonder why, even after achieving everything, people still don't really respect them. Jung discovered people sense psychological integration unconsciously. They can feel when someone is internally integrated versus when someone is performing integration while remaining internally fragmented. Integrated people command respect automatically. Fragmented people never command respect, no matter what they achieve, because achievement doesn't create integration. Think about people you truly respect versus people you're just impressed by. The people you're impressed by have achievements, status, success, but you don't deeply respect them. Something feels off. They're performing, proving, seeking validation. You can sense their internal fragmentation even if you can't articulate it. But the people you truly respect have a different quality. They're not trying to impress you. They're not seeking your validation. They're not performing anything. They're just present, fully themselves. And that psychological wholeness commands your respect without them doing anything to earn it. Jung called this individuation, the process of becoming psychologically whole. And he discovered, individuated people naturally command respect because psychological wholeness triggers an unconscious recognition in others. You sense their integration, and your psyche responds with respect. It's automatic, not earned. What follows are the 5 psychological secrets Jung found in people who naturally command respect. And all 5 are about internal integration, not external achievement. The first secret Jung discovered in naturally respected people, they've integrated their shadow instead of performing morality. They're not trying to be good, nice, or acceptable. They consciously contain their darkness, anger, selfishness, cruelty, and express it appropriately when needed. And this conscious integration of darkness commands far more respect than performed goodness ever could. Most people perform morality. They show only acceptable qualities, kindness, selflessness, agreeableness, while repressing unacceptable qualities into the unconscious shadow. They're desperate to be seen as good people, so they hide anything that contradicts that image. But this performance doesn't command respect. It triggers suspicion. Why? Because everyone has shadow. Everyone has anger, selfishness, cruelty. When someone performs as if they don't have these qualities, your psyche knows they're lying, either to you or to themselves. And you can't respect someone who's either dishonest or unconscious. You might fear their shadow erupting. You might pity their self-deception, but you don't respect them. Jung discovered that respected people have done the opposite. They've admitted their shadow qualities exist. They're not pretending to be only good. They acknowledge, yes, I have anger. Yes, I'm capable of cruelty. Yes, I can be selfish. But crucially, they've made these qualities conscious so they can choose how to express them rather than having them express unconsciously. This creates a completely different presence. You're not afraid of them because their shadow is conscious and controlled, but you're also not confused by contradictions between their persona and their behavior. They're integrated. What you see is what they are. There's no performance, no hidden shadow, no unconscious darkness leaking out, just conscious wholeness containing both light and dark. Think about people you deeply respect. Notice they're not trying to be good. They're not performing kindness while hiding their anger. They're honest about their capacity for darkness, and that honesty is part of why you respect them. They can be ruthless when necessary. They can be selfish when appropriate. They can express anger when it serves them. And this integration commands respect. Now think about people who perform constant goodness. The ones always nice, always agreeable, always selfless. Do you truly respect them? Or do you sense their repressed shadow and unconsciously distrust them? You might like them. You might think they're sweet. But you probably don't deeply respect them because you can feel their fragmentation. The gap between their performed goodness and their repressed darkness. Jung emphasized, shadow integration is the foundation of commanding respect. When you consciously own your darkness, people sense your psychological wholeness. They know you're not performing. They know you're not repressing. They sense integration, and they respond with respect. Not because you're good, but because you're whole. But shadow integration alone isn't enough. There's a second quality that sets respected people apart. Jung's second secret reveals why seeking respect prevents you from getting it. Naturally respected people don't need your validation. They're not trying to prove their worth. They're not seeking approval. They're not performing to make you think well of them. This absence of need creates psychological presence that commands respect automatically. Most people are desperate for validation. They need others to see them as valuable, important, worthy. So they perform, showing their achievements, proving their intelligence, demonstrating their goodness. They're constantly seeking confirmation that they're enough. And this need repels respect. Why? Because neediness signals fragmentation. When you need others' validation, you're demonstrating that you don't validate yourself. You're showing that your self-worth is externally dependent, and people can't respect someone who doesn't respect themselves enough to self-validate. Jung discovered that respected people have done internal work that makes external validation irrelevant. They're not deriving self-worth from others' opinions. They've found what Jung called the self, an internal source of value that doesn't depend on external confirmation. So they don't need you to think they're impressive. They already know their worth internally. This creates radically different energy. They're not trying to impress you. They're not seeking your approval. They're not monitoring your reactions to see if you validate them. They're just present, completely unconcerned with whether you respect them or not. And paradoxically, this absence of need makes you respect them. Think about someone you respect who has this quality. They don't seem to care whether you're impressed. They're not performing their achievements. They're not seeking your validation. They're just themselves. And that self-assured presence commands your respect without them trying to earn it. Now think about people who need your validation. They're constantly showcasing achievements, proving their worth, seeking confirmation. Do you respect them? No, you pity them. Their need reveals their internal fragmentation. They haven't found internal self-worth, so they're desperately seeking it externally, and that neediness prevents respect. Jung called this self-validation through individuation, the process of finding worth through internal integration rather than external achievement. Once you've found your worth internally, you stop needing external validation, and the moment you stop needing it, people start giving it. Because absence of need signals psychological wholeness, and wholeness commands respect. This doesn't mean you don't care about others' opinions. It means their opinions don't determine your worth. You can receive feedback without needing it to validate you. You can be criticized without your self-worth collapsing. You're internally stable, and that stability is what creates the presence that commands respect. But even self-validation doesn't complete the picture. There's a third quality that's even more powerful. Jung's third secret completely explains why weak people never command respect. Naturally respected people are comfortable with others' discomfort. They don't people please. They don't avoid conflict. They don't sacrifice their truth to keep others comfortable. And this willingness to let others be uncomfortable commands massive respect. Most people are terrified of others' discomfort. Someone gets upset with them, and they immediately try to fix it. Someone disagrees, and they backtrack to avoid conflict. Someone is disappointed in their choice, and they change their choice to restore approval. They're constantly managing others' emotional states, sacrificing their truth to maintain others' comfort. This people-pleasing destroys respect, because when you sacrifice your truth for others' comfort, you're demonstrating that their comfort matters more than your integrity. You're showing you'll abandon yourself to avoid disapproval. And people can't respect someone who won't stand for themselves. Jung discovered that respected people have done psychological work that makes them comfortable with others' discomfort. They're not responsible for managing others' emotions. They speak their truth even when it upsets people. They make choices that serve them even when others are disappointed. They set boundaries even when it creates conflict. They let others be uncomfortable, and they remain stable while others struggle with that discomfort. This creates powerful presence. You're not trying to control their emotional response. You're not managing their reaction to maintain approval. You're just being truthful, and they can respond however they need to. This stability in the face of others' instability commands respect. Think about someone you respect who has this quality. They say uncomfortable truths. They make unpopular decisions. They disappoint people when necessary, and they don't apologize or backtrack when others get upset. They remain stable, clear, unapologetic, and you respect them more because of it, not less. Now think about people pleasers you know. They agree with everyone. They avoid conflict. They sacrifice their needs to keep others happy. Do you respect them? No. You might like them, appreciate their accommodation, even exploit their weakness. But you don't respect them. Their inability to tolerate others' discomfort reveals they lack the psychological strength that commands respect. Jung emphasized, Comfort with others' discomfort signals psychological separation. You're not enmeshed with others' emotions. You're not responsible for their reactions. You've individuated, separated your psyche from collective need for approval, and that separation creates the boundary strength that commands respect. This doesn't mean you're cruel or indifferent. It means you don't abandon yourself to manage others' comfort. You can care about people while letting them be uncomfortable with your choices. You can love someone while disappointing them. You remain truthful even when truth creates discomfort. That's the strength that commands respect. But there's something even more fundamental that separates respected people from everyone else. If you're recognizing these secrets, that respected people have integrated shadow, don't need validation, and are comfortable with others' discomfort, you're beginning to understand what Jung meant by psychological presence that commands respect automatically. Before we explore the final 2 secrets that complete this understanding, check out our new guide, True Self-Discovery, with 24 practical reflection exercises designed to help you find your way within. Click below to get True Self-Discovery. Let's continue, because these final 2 secrets reveal the deepest sources of natural respect that 99% of people never access. Jung's 4th secret reveals something profound. Naturally respected people know themselves completely, both their strengths and their limitations. They're not performing competence beyond their actual capacity. They're not pretending to know what they don't know. They're radically honest about what they're capable of and what they're not. And this self-knowledge commands more respect than false expertise ever could. Most people perform confidence to gain respect. They pretend to know more than they do. They overstate their capabilities. They hide their limitations. They're constantly trying to appear more competent, more knowledgeable, more capable than they actually are. And this performance doesn't create respect. It creates eventual loss of respect when the performance is exposed. Jung discovered that respected people have done deep self-examination. They know their strengths, and they leverage them without false modesty. But crucially, they also know their limitations, and they admit them without shame. They don't pretend competence they don't have. They don't fake knowledge they haven't acquired. They're radically honest about the edges of their capacity. This creates trust. When someone admits what they don't know, you trust what they claim to know. When someone acknowledges their limitations, you trust their assessment of their strengths. There's no performance, no inflation, no pretense. Just accurate self-knowledge. And that accuracy is what commands respect. Think about people you truly respect. They're not trying to appear perfect or all-knowing. They readily admit when something is outside their expertise. They acknowledge their mistakes. They're clear about their limitations. And this honesty makes you trust them completely, which creates deep respect. Now, think about people who pretend to know everything. They never admit ignorance. They never acknowledge limitations. They're always performing expertise even in areas where they're clearly incompetent. Do you respect them? No, you distrust them. Their performance reveals they don't actually know themselves, which means you can't trust their judgment about anything. Jung called this conscious self-knowledge, the result of what he termed the examined life. You've looked at yourself honestly. You know what you're good at and what you're not. You know where you're competent and where you're still learning. You don't need to perform or inflate because you've accepted your actual capacity, both its power and its limits. This self-knowledge creates respect because it demonstrates psychological maturity. You're not identified with an inflated ego image. You're not defensive about your limitations. You've accepted yourself as you actually are, which is the foundation of psychological integration. And integration commands respect. But even complete self-knowledge doesn't capture the final secret, the quality Jung considered most essential. Jung's final secret is the most powerful. Naturally respected people live from authentic internal values, not from beliefs they've adopted from others. They've done the psychological work to discover what they actually value, not what they should value, not what others value, not what sounds impressive. And they organize their lives around these authentic values regardless of whether others understand or approve. Most people live from adopted values. They believe what their culture told them to believe. They value what they were taught to value. They pursue what society says is important: success, status, appearance, approval. But these aren't their authentic values. They're collective values they've internalized without examination. This creates internal conflict that others sense. You're living for values that aren't actually yours. You're pursuing goals that don't align with what you genuinely care about. There's a gap between your authentic self and your lived life, and this gap prevents respect, because people sense you're not being authentic. You're living someone else's values while pretending they're yours. Jung discovered that respected people have done what he called value individuation, the process of examining adopted values and discovering authentic ones. They've questioned everything they were taught to value. They've identified which values are genuinely theirs versus which were just internalized from others. And they've reorganized their lives around their authentic values even when those values contradict collective expectations. This creates powerful authenticity. They're not trying to impress you with socially valued achievements. They're not pursuing culturally approved goals. They're living from internal values that might not make sense to anyone else. But those values are genuinely theirs. And this authenticity commands respect even when you don't share their values. Think about someone you deeply respect who lives from authentic values. Maybe they chose a path that seems crazy to most people, but it's clearly authentic to them. They're not trying to prove anything. They're not seeking approval for their choices. They're just living according to what they actually value. And you respect them for the courage to live authentically even when it contradicts collective expectations. Now, think about people living from adopted values. They're pursuing success because that's what they should pursue. They're seeking status because that's what impresses others. They're chasing goals that sound good, but don't align with who they actually are. Do you respect them? No. You sense their inauthenticity. They're living someone else's life, and that betrayal of self prevents genuine respect. Jung emphasized, authentic values emerge through individuation. You have to separate from collective consciousness, examine what you were taught to value, discover what you actually value, and have the courage to live from those authentic values regardless of others' approval. This is terrifying, because your authentic values might not be respected by society, but living from them creates self-respect, which is the foundation of commanding others' respect. When you live from authentic values, you're no longer performing for approval. You're being yourself. And that authenticity is what ultimately commands the deepest respect, because people recognize you're not betraying yourself to gain their validation. You're whole, integrated, authentic, and wholeness commands respect automatically. Let me bring these 5 secrets together. To command respect like the top 1%, according to Jung, first, integrate your shadow instead of performing morality. Conscious wholeness commands more respect than performed goodness. Second, stop needing validation. Self-validated people naturally command respect because their presence signals internal worth. Third, become comfortable with others' discomfort. The ability to disappoint people while remaining stable creates boundary strength that commands respect. Fourth, know yourself completely. Honest self-knowledge, including limitations, commands more trust and respect than performed expertise. Fifth, live from authentic values. Organizing your life around genuine internal values rather than adopted beliefs creates authenticity that commands deep respect. None of these secrets are about achievement, status, or external success. They're all about internal psychological integration. Jung discovered, respect is a response to perceived wholeness in another person. You can't fake wholeness through achievement. You have to do the internal work of individuation, integrating shadow, developing self-validation, creating boundaries, knowing yourself honestly, discovering authentic values. When you've done this work, respect happens automatically, not because you're trying to earn it, but because psychological wholeness triggers an unconscious recognition in others. They sense your integration, and their psyche responds with respect. You're not performing anything. You're just being whole, and wholeness commands respect. If you want people to respect you instantly, Jung would tell you, stop trying to earn respect through external achievement. Start doing the internal psychological work that creates wholeness. Integrate your shadow. Stop needing validation. Become comfortable with others' discomfort. Know yourself completely. Live from authentic values. This work is harder than achieving external success. It requires confronting parts of yourself you've been avoiding. It requires letting go of others' approval. It requires disappointing people. It requires honest self-examination. It requires discovering and living from values that might not be respected by society. But this internal work is what creates the psychological presence that commands respect automatically. The top 1% aren't more successful, more talented, or more impressive. They're more integrated. They've done the psychological work that 99% of people avoid. And that integration is what makes respect inevitable. Stop chasing respect through achievement. Start building respect through integration. That's the secret. That's Jung's path. That's how you make anyone respect you instantly. If you're ready to command respect through psychological integration instead of external achievement, subscribe to this channel. Join thousands using Jung's wisdom to develop the internal qualities that make respect automatic. To dive even deeper into Jung's revolutionary psychology and what it means for your spiritual awakening, click the recommended video on your screen now.